Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins
Welcome,
here.
David Gilbert, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I am feeling grateful.
Grateful. I love it. You're probably the first person to say that. Typically say, I'm doing great, I'm doing well. And it's just kind of a surface level. So I already know that we're going to be having a good conversation. We're going to be talking about your work, not only your executive coaching work, how you help men, but then also your book. I just love the title. We're going to be looking at the aspect of the ultimate quest for inner gold. And, I just love the whole premise of it. So if you could, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Absolutely. My name is David Gilbert. I'm an executive coach. I'm joining Novus Global, which is a firm of executive coaches that takes Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, leaders, and organizations beyond high performance. And then personally, I have found alchemy as part of my dharma, my life story. Maybe we'll get into it, maybe not. My whole tattoo sleeve tells the story of alchemy, and it was unintentional. So I developed my own framework, taking people through what I call the alchemical journey, which is really just the inward journey and climbing that inward mountain. And that's how the book came about. I'm taking people through that process. I put it into a fun story. So a little bit of alchemy and really just the name of the game is transformation.
I had a person early on in the podcast. I don't know if it was episodes in the single digits or it was like episode like 102 or something, where she talked about alchemy. So this is going to be a refreshing thing for the audience because it's been so long since we talked about this aspect. When we look at alchemy, what is it in the sense of mindset? Is it something where it's science-based or is it going to be internal based?
Ooh, great question. And it's funny, we tend to think of alchemy in my own experience of people. It's like, oh, they're the crazy dudes turning lead into gold.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, and they're going through that process of taking a lead and the transmutation process into gold and applying it to themselves. So really, I mean, in my own perspective, things start with the mind. So starting with the mind, transforming with the mind, but when you transform the inner, it transforms the outer, and sometimes vice versa.
That's actually a good point. I think of when it comes to change, right? There's things that happen in the body, right? Like a chemical response. And people don't necessarily see the chemical response happening, right? Eventually, with time, they can look in the mirror or they can look at an old photo and they can see, hey, look, there's some change happening or there's change that has happened. And our world today, we typically like things very quickly. If you have Amazon, you want same day or the next day shipping. You don't want it in 5 days, right? You want it very quickly. When we're talking about this alchemy journey or this alchemical journey, we're looking at it for the internal, right? Because the next part is the ultimate quest for inner gold. And so we think of the transmutation of how we can turn things into gold. And so how can we turn, our potential into that, right? So like our day-to-day endeavors, our consistent efforts, can bring about a luxurious life in a sense. If we think about if we are consistent in doing something or on doing something, we know that at some point our endeavors are going to lead to something good. And so I think of just the funny stories and memes of people who are searching for gold or digging for gold or diamonds, and they get just to the point and they say, there's no gold here. There's no oil here. There's no diamonds here. And then you can see the image. There's gold there. Just if they kept going a little bit more, there's diamonds or there's oil if they just drilled a little bit more. So, looking at, what is capable of people, of course, everyone can reach that gold. Everyone can reach those diamonds. But so many people, they give up before they get it. So, what is the idea of your book or your methodology in helping people keep pushing to get to that gold or to those diamonds?
Yeah, I love that. And it makes, 3 feet from gold. Just to pull a little bit out of what I heard recently is we sometimes get focused on the having, right? Like, what will I have? What does it mean when I get the gold, when I have the gold? And I'm sure with all the podcasts that you've done, this model has come up. We kind of focus on the have, and then that leads to what do I have to do to the having, but then what's underneath that? And that's the being. So Absolutely. If you want to create real transformation, like meta performance stands for metamorphosis. So, like transforming who you are, we can try all the things on the surface level and like put in the action of the daily consistent things. But if you don't change who you are on the inside, you're only going to hit a certain level of performance or metrics or having. So the alchemical journey is that inward journey of transformation. And this is where a lot of people, go, it's the hero's journey plus alchemy in one, of
Mm.
literally what you said of how do we start to crystallize some of that potential that we know is in us. And it you go through the process, and sometimes, just like the hero's journey, some people just don't, that there's the refusal to the call, and they have glimpses of what's possible, but they don't take that leap into the unknown. And then from the leap into the unknown, maybe you're probably listening to this podcast, you are on the personal development journey. Well, then you start to uncover, oh, wait, I have these belief systems, and these belief systems make up who I am. And if I have limited beliefs, like, it's going to be a struggle to get that thing. If I don't even think I'm worthy of that thing, then I'm going to subconsciously sabotage myself even if I do get the thing. And you play this funny game that we all do. It's part of being human. But you go through, and then maybe you do know some of your limited beliefs. And then it's like, what's the step after that? Right. And then after that, you're starting to get into the territory of understanding we have these emotions. And if you get outside your comfort zone, which if you're going to grow, you're going to get outside your comfort zone. And then what happens? Our brains love to freak out. Like, this is scary. This is unknown territory. Or you do something bold, and maybe it's like you had an experience in childhood that stirred up some emotions, and then that brings up those old emotions, which is another limiting belief or core wound. So from there, learning how to work with those emotions that you have inside of you. And then after that, it's learning the journey of learning how to awaken your heart. Because if you're trying to be your best self, and you don't open up your heart to yourself, I mean, you're not going to get that far to that gold of love and fulfillment and joy and peace and all the things we want internally. It's going to start with opening up that heart and reclaiming all the inner parts of yourself.
I think of the beginning, the inception of someone beginning, right? So we can use terms apprentice, novice. They are beginning that journey. And the goal is to become a master, right? To become adept in the skills of creation, right? Creation of whatever we would like, of maybe the creation of a strong family, the creation of a thriving business, right? So we can give ourselves those ideas of what we would like to create. And I think of how people, they remain in the idea of a beginner constantly, right? So they accept the given title that was given to them. It's, like if it's like a king says, okay, you're going to be, the lowest rank of a knight or something, right? And you never get a promotion. I'm sure at some point they're going to say, listen, I've been with you 15, 20 years and I'm not getting any promotions, right? I'm not making any advancements. If we look at the corporate world today, it is easy to say, hey, I'm not getting more money. I'm not getting more money. Like, this is not tangible, right? Like, cost is going up, everything. So, but it's the same idea with how we develop ourselves, where we are the boss of ourselves. We don't have people giving us money unless you are the CEO and you write your own checks, right? But this is to say that you are the proponent if you want some change to happen. So if you are a beginner today, you can use any idea of what a beginner is. It could be martial arts, it could be alchemy, right? You start somewhere and you learn, right? And then you enhance things get better. I think of potion making, right? This is kind of, it could be a voodoo talk or whatever you want to consider, but it's just the idea of where someone can begin. Where maybe the first potion they make is not that great. The first business you do might not work, right? Most businesses in the first 3 to 5 years, they fail, right? But it's not that the business failed, right? It's the person is learning how to run a business. So your first business might fail, but is your second business going to go through the same problems? Maybe, maybe not, right? But I can tell you one thing, you probably learn from your mistakes. If you touch the fire, you're not going to keep touching that fire. I guarantee you. Most people are going to say, ouch, fire hurt, right? Cavemen, right? They touch the fire. Ouch, that hurt. Don't stay away from fire, right? Fire bad, right? So we know that we are not going to keep doing the things that keep hurting us. However, many of the people keep doing things that don't hurt you, that are hurting you. So remaining that beginner, not trying to experiment with different things and challenging yourselves day to day. All of these different aspects are leading to the life that you have today. And it might be a life of being stuck or a life of sabotage where you're not giving yourself the next level. And it's so important. This is why you have mentors, teachers, and guides. And there's so many great books out there that you can read and you can learn from. And you can say, okay, I'm gaining some knowledge. I'm gaining some wisdom. I'm applying it. I'm increasing my skill level. And then at that point, you should be rising from a novice to someone who is maybe a journeyman now. And you're learning to become better at it. But now we have to get into this conversation of now we're trying to get to that self mastery. We're trying to get to the idea of being the master. It is a journey, and it could be an arduous one where we're not going to have an easy level 1 to 100 where we take a potion and we're all of a sudden, this strong hero that can, defeat someone of any stature, right? We have to build to that. So the idea of self mastery, the journey to that, and how is attained. What is the idea of how you present self mastery to someone?
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many points, and like to really showcase, I have this coin. It might be hard to see here, but it says 1000x, and there's a bunch of mountains. It's basically to acknowledge it's a summitless peak if you choose growth, right? So if you choose growth, then you realize, like you said, all the failures and everything else, that's only a construct of the story you're telling yourself in that moment. And just to acknowledge where a lot of people get stuck is they keep themselves in that box that I'm a failure because I went for that business idea and I failed. And then guess what? You keep living in that story versus what you're saying is like if you're committed to self-mastery, another way to say it, you're committed to growth. Like you're willing, you understand failure and success are part of the same coin right here. Like they're hand in hand. And we'll go through 1,000+ alchemical journeys in our lifetime, some micro, some macro. And when you can start to see that the insidious part of keeping ourselves limited because of how we see ourselves. If we're interpreting reality or our own story, if you're the author of your own story, which I would assert you are, that if you keep yourself, I failed at business, so I got to go back and do this thing that's soul sucking. Maybe you're in that spot right now. Well, I want to play with your thinking a little bit, right? Because to the listeners and to yourself, I wonder, I like to throw this question out there. Like, I wonder if you still identify as somebody that poops their pants. Because guess what? We know that you used to poop your pants. And then if you get into the science of like our memories, they're actually not as accurate as we think they are, right? There's a lot of emotions involved. And then the story that we're telling ourselves, and this is the frame which we view life. So it's so easy to put ourselves in this limited view of I'm a failure because, or whatever the thing is for yourself. But if you could start to acknowledge that that's not always truth, and if I were to ask you, is it absolutely true? You'd probably say, or you would say no. Then it frees up space to start the journey of mastery, right? And that's where I love to just get to the first part is to understand the subconscious mind. Like the first phase in alchemy is the black phase. And you could think of this as getting to know the unconscious parts of yourself or your blind spots or the shadow work, whatever word you want to use. And that's where there's ways you're showing up you don't realize. We all have blind spots, as well as there's parts of yourself that you're unconscious to. And if you don't know these stories, our brains are wired that we're going to live out our beliefs. You could call it the ego or personality. Like it's here to survive and it's here to be right about being right. So it's another way to say this is like the closed mindset, right? Versus a growth mindset. And you have to take that leap to be willing to look at those parts of yourself, those beliefs that you may have been carrying that you didn't realize you've been carrying. If you want to start the journey to self-mastery, it really is the first part. And this is where we get to have more grace for ourselves as you go through the journey, because really, the further you get along, to realize the more grace, because we're all going to fall consistently, but it's the strength and the wisdom that you get from falling that makes you the master. So we all want to, just like you said, take the potion and be there, be jacked and have the money and all the things. But what if it wasn't about the things? Because guess what? When you die, are you going to take the things? No, you don't get to take any of the things. This is where I like to say, like, you get to take with you your soul gold, though, right? And the soul gold is the lessons, experiences, and the growth that you're going to carry with you no matter what. So if you can really see like the bigger picture view of your life and acknowledge, yeah, the material things are great, but what's going to bring the fulfillment is that growth. And then this is getting into high performers can be overly performance based and then criticize themselves on that. To be able to acknowledge and celebrate that along the way and see it and like celebrate it and love it, then you have the fulfillment with the external success. Because we all know the stories about people who climb the first mountain of material success and then they're like, why am I empty inside? So this is where you could consider it the second mountain is the alchemical journey. Like once you master the external, can you start to master the internal? But both along the way, you're going to get skills and growth that are going to help you in the journey of life.
I love that. I think of the journey now, right? And I'm sure people are going to start to put their own ideas of themselves and their circumstances into the mix. Would you say that a person's journey is going to be identical or kind of similar in the sense of we're all walking on the same path, right? Because most people, they want to have something better in their life, right? So if we can think of that journey now, everyone wants something better, right? So it's the same journey. Now, how they do it is different, of course, right? Someone might say, okay, I'm going to be an author. Someone might say, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be a construction worker, right? Whatever that journey is for them, right? It branches off now. And so when we are at that inception of going on this journey, right, we all have the same idea. And I'm sure people are probably talking about their dreams and ideals. And maybe someone has this crazy idea like Uber or something, right? They're like, Uber, like, like, what is that? And then it's like, oh, yeah, this rideshare service. And they're like, that's a stupid idea, right? Now we have all the people in the beginning, they have the same journey, right? They all want better, right? But then there's going to be people who maybe congregate and they talk about those journeys that they would like to go on. And some people will embark on that journey to be an author, to be a construction worker, to be an entrepreneur that maybe starts a business like Uber or Amazon or something like that. But how many people say, you know what? After having a conversation with all these people and I see all the wonderful things that they're doing or that they would like to do and that they're so ambitious, why even bother? And so when we start to look at, we all want the same journey, but some people are maybe afraid to take action or they belittle themselves because they compare themselves to others of taking action. So, looking at the aspect of our journey can be, unique or ours. It doesn't have to be comparable to someone else's. How can we encourage people to go on that journey, even if it might seem inadequate to them at the time after hearing someone else's journey?
Yeah. I mean, the reminder that your life experience is the single one in the infinity of eternity. So, excuse my French, your story is sacred as shit. Like, honor how insane and divine and like magical the opportunity of life that you have, and then the fact that it will never be the same as anybody else. And then we can acknowledge too, like, it's not always easy, right? We have to step into the unknown. We know this is one of the hardest parts of the hero's journey, the refusal to the call, to step into the unknown and like being able to do that consistently. And even as you do take that leap, then sometimes exactly what you said, other people's beliefs, you can take those on, right? Or fear gets in the way because you're stepping into the unknown and our brain wants certainty. It wants to know how things are going to work out and that we're going to be safe and that we're going to be okay. But it's this idea of, instead of searching for where things are going to go wrong, what if you're a being that's exploring possibility? And I can share from my own experience. Like when my mom asked me what I wanted to do as a kid, I said, live by the beach and own my own business. and I live in San Diego now. And then in 2020, I went to go open a business, my own retail store, all on my own, meditation supply store. I thought that was my calling. I could see the vision. I could see the vision of a franchise that was selling subscription boxes and online, but I signed the lease January 2020. So best time in our history, right? I was due to open March 2020, and I had a 2-year lease. I got out after a year and a half because it just open, close in California. It was just a uphill battle. But getting out of that store by going for it, risking it all, and then I could tell I could be in the story still if I wanted, like, oh, I'm a failure. I failed at that business, right? But that led to me discovering alchemy, and my sweet spot, my zone of genius is one-to-one transformation, and then like uncovering systems of transformation. So by risking it all, metaphorically losing it all, it's like in the book, like you rise like a phoenix and then you get the greater gold, or like what you really want. And that's where it's not easy, but if you could see it as like an exciting game of possibility, like it just opens things up. So if you can just take that courage to go for it and then find out, instead of living in the regret of not doing anything, there's so much potential and beauty that can unfold from that. Even if you don't get the thing you think you want, you're going to get something beautiful by going for it. Like there is gold or beauty on the other side of getting uncomfortable or stretching your comfort zone.
Yeah, we definitely need the moments in our life that are not victorious. I think of movies, right? We think of iconic movies like Rocky, right? Rocky lost and he's on that journey to win. And so we are at the edge of our seats and hoping he can win, he can become victorious, right? We're seeing him, I the tiger, right? Going upstairs, all right, I'm gonna go jump rope, I'm gonna do all these things too, right? Because I can feel that battle too, right? Because many people are living in that. And, one of the things he did well in that movie was understanding how the mind works. Is that if he just won all the boxing matches and it wasn't, anything like at the edge of your seat, people wouldn't, call Rocky an iconic movie. And every flow of movie since then, the ones that do really well, have that idea of a loss or something that didn't go their way. Think of a modern movie today, like Avengers, right? Where, Thanos snaps his fingers and, half the world is gone, or like half of existence is gone. And so it seems dire and everyone is like, well, what's next, right? Like, what are we going to do? And that could be you right now, right? You are literally trying to figure out, well, what do I do next? And I can't tell you how many people are there, and that is like it could be debilitating for the majority of people, where they're like, I don't know what to do. It could be dead, it could be bad relationships or bad work, whatever is causing you to, kind of anchor down and to not move. You have to be brave enough to take that first step, right? It's that uncertainty that stops a lot of people, but it's the bravery that's going to take you to where you would like to go. And I can't imagine, a master not making a mistake ever on that journey, right? Or in their life, or losing a battle, because that is how we grow. We don't grow from our successes, we grow from our failures. And I know this is hard for people to understand because they think successes are the good part, right? Successes can bring money. Successes can bring about, wealth or better relationships, right? You ask a girl out and she says, yes, you have a relationship now, versus if they say, no, you don't, right? People, they fail to look at what went wrong. And I think of like when people do experiments, right? It could be great scientists. It could be like, Benjamin Franklin with that, like 1,000 times trying to get electricity. It could be someone, creating, it was the guy who created, the sticky notes, right? He was trying to make this super glue, like this crazy adhesive, and he makes post-its, $1 billion industry now, right? So it's like he had a mistake that happened because he was trying to do something different, but something else happened, right? And I know in life, like, you can be kind of going for something and you are not getting exactly what you want. So for example, maybe you are digging for diamonds and you see all this yellow stuff. You're like, what the hell is all this yellow stuff, right? It's little yellow nuggets and all these yellow flakes everywhere, garbage. And you just throw it away because you're looking for diamonds. But that was gold, right? So sometimes we're looking at something and we fail to see what else is happening or what else we are gaining and achieving from our journey of looking for the diamonds or looking for the gold, right? So we might be looking for that penthouse or that family or $1 million business, but everything else in between can truly set you up for true success down the road. And I know this is difficult for, just regular people to understand, but when it comes into world of high performers, they understand it better. They understand like, hey, I'm losing. I think of like a high performer like David Goggins. He knows what he needs to do. When he attempted the world record for pull-ups, he did not win the first time. He failed. And imagine how much work he put in that 24 hours. And now he was going through that battle of, I have to do it again. Most people will quit. Most people will say, I'm not going to go through all that pain and challenge again because I know how much it sucks. But he was so ambitious, right? That high performer mentality of, I want to, have this record. Now, today, the record is no longer his, but it's still that he went on that journey. He failed and he was able to say, I still want it. And this is the mindset that many people they have to have today, that like you fail and you still have to want it. You didn't get something didn't work out your way. The experiment that you're trying to do, the idea that you're trying to invent or, bring into the market is not necessarily going your way. You have to pivot. And so, I would love to kind of get your interpretation on the pivoting, because you did have that business. You did have a moment where you could have just threw in the towel, but there was something else inside of you that said no.
Yeah. I know for myself, it's just being committed to that thing that like find that thing that lights me up inside. And it's been a thread. And just to touch on some points that you brought up, like and we talk about success, and we want the success, and our brains are wired to want to do it as efficiently as possible, which means use as the least amount of energy as possible. So we just want it to show up, like winning the lottery. But what happens, we know with people who win the lottery who are really poor their whole lives, they lose it instantly. So if you could see, it's like sustainable success, right? To have the skills and capabilities that if you were given that success, you can hold on to it. Because that might even be worse, to like be given $1 million and want $1 million your whole life and then lose it in a week and just like watch it go through your fingers, right? Find the gold, or like, that yellow stuff isn't worthy, and then walk away and then realize that was gold. That's like even worse regret. So to first of all acknowledge we want sustainable success, but then just to like even go bigger picture for your second, like to acknowledge that the truth is that failure and success is subjective, which is another way of saying like we make it up. So being able to play with that, and like one of the tools in the firm when we work with a company, not to give it away here, but is we have this fortune cookie. We all know the saying, it is what it is, right? My boyfriend left me. It is what it is. Or, oh, I failed at that business. I'm going to do the thing. It is what it is. And then we have people go through this exercise and they open up this fortune cookie and it says, and that's exactly the way I want it. So this is where, the work that I do with high performers looking to go beyond that, it's fierce advocacy. Here's my one. Fierce advocacy through love, to also acknowledge that you have total potential of ownership of your life. And like, let's also look at big picture view. Like, this is the greatest time to be alive. Like you said, anything, if you live in the United States, anything you can imagine can be in your doorsteps in a couple of days, right? Any amount of information from the human collective is at our fingertips at all times now. So this really does put up a mirror that if your life isn't the way you want it, like you have the information and tools to change it. Not to say, I know I've been in like severely depressed, like dark night of the soul. So like I know what that's like, where days it's even hard just to get out of bed. So total compassion. And like, what do you got to do to light a fire under your ass to take ownership and just take the smallest steps? Like you're looking for momentum. If you're at the bottom of the mountain, like we've been talking about, you have to build up the strength to be able to climb at that very peak, right? So like, what are the baby steps to get you going? And I know for myself, like thinking back, for me, it's always been like, what is that purpose for myself? And how do I uncover that? And it's gone through evolutions where I'd get glimpses at a younger age, and then I'd try to put that in practice, and then it wasn't the thing, and then it comes back up. Like, I don't know, like golden life has been a thread in my life. Talking about gold, both sides of the family. I'm fifth and sixth generation Californian. So like my ancestors came out during the gold rush to California and have been living here since, to like a t-shirt company in high school. And one was like California Lifestyle and then Golden Lifestyle. And then when I had the store, I finally made the Golden Life Academy. And I was like, it's always been this pull of something to share. And I didn't know how. And then closed the store. Then I was like, okay, I'll do a Golden Life. But then I started this in-person intensive where I started taking people through this transmutation of self process, kind of like limitations and traumas, and turning that into soul gold. And then that's where the Alchemical Journey came about. And I was like, Golden Life, alchemy. Okay. This was a thread I've been following. And sometimes you lose it and then you re-find it, or you think it's one thing and it's not it. But if you just keep following that, like some kind of magic will unfold that is your unique thing to share with the cosmos. Like it's your unique gift or essence or magic that you could put out in the world. And then that's going to bring so much fulfillment because you're just expressing from a soul level instead of just chasing a surface level like goal.
Yeah, that's important. I think of, the term, so gold. And sometimes when it comes to a person, right, they're very or sort of connected with their body and their mind. But the soul is almost like a forgotten piece where they say, okay, I'm worried about my body because I'm looking in the mirror. My mind is very stressed. I'm burned out. But they don't look at the alignment with their soul. They don't look at if it's, like if it's doing exactly what it was meant to do, destiny or purpose, whatever. And that's where I think it causes a lot of hardship for people because they are not looking at everything that they are. And if we can just look at the pieces that maybe we are not paying attention to, I talk about the black phase, right? Step one, the subconscious is so important where we look at that. But our world and our mind today, there's so many people who kind of just say, throw it in the closet, I'll sweep it under the rug, I'll do it another day. And it's creating unnecessary hardships. I believe there should be hardships in your life, but I believe that you shouldn't be a proponent every single day you're getting in your way, right? The snooze button is a great example. Don't hit it. Fight your day. Step into your day with purpose, right? You don't have to snooze your dreams, right? Your dreams are waiting for you, right? You have to be deliberate. And so when we can be deliberate at looking at everything that lights us up, right? We can look at, the body that's going to light us up, the mind that's going to light us up, the soul that's going to light us up. And and eventually it lights the way. It lights the paths that might seem dark or, treacherous at times. And you say, okay, I can see still, right? And we all have those moments where there's going to be some uncertainty. And that's where you need a guide. That's where you need someone to come in, on the canoe with a lantern and say, come with me. And it's so important that you have that person, right? You find a guide, you find a mentor, find a teacher, right? And then you learn. Typically their journey has not been pristine too, right? There's rough waters, patchy walkways, but they make the best out of it, right? Because they're still consistent in how they're doing it. And I just think about, your journey and so many other people's journey of how they were able to overcome the uncertainty, especially in 2020, right? Like it was terrible for so many people, but there's so many success stories. But then there's also stories when people, they just kind of threw in the towel. So what happened when you threw in the towel during that time was it developed a set point for you of, okay, well, this is possible. I think of like when you're on the treadmill and you're running and you stop, the brain learns, oh, I can stop. Nothing happens, right? This feels good, right? You get accustomed to the pleasure. Versus if you give yourself an ultimatum of not stopping, you're like, well, if I stop, I'm going to have to start back up for another 5 minutes or something like that. You're like, I'd rather just keep on going for one more minute than have to do this again for 5 minutes. So the mind knows that it can keep on pushing itself. And of course, there could be some limitations with your body right now, of course, because, maybe you haven't been taking the best care of your body. But as you do the work, right, your body becomes stronger. The same thing with your mind. And then after that, your soul follows, right? It becomes stronger no matter what someone says to you, because when you're on that journey, step one, level one, and you're talking to everyone about your goals and your dreams, guess what? That soul's so strong, your mind's so strong, your body's so strong that it's ready to go through any storm, any challenge, any person. And it's so important that you give yourself this idea that you can be the person that wins. It's not going to be easy if you just kind of, keep on with the same old that you have been doing. And this is why I love to have someone to walk with you, right? David, the work you do, you say you work with individuals. I love working with individuals, right? I know they have these big workshops and seminars and things. That's not my cup of tea, right? I'm like the boy in the beach with the starfish, throwing them into the water, right? One person at a time, right? Because I believe that's going to create the biggest impact. Because if I were just going to kind of be a teacher, have a classroom of 30 to 300 kids or whatever, depending on grade level, and I just say, okay, you're just another person, right? I want to know who you are. I want to be the person to say, I saw where you were day one and I see where you are today, right? I could see that growth. And when you can have that person in your life, it feels so good. I think of a child's, need for their parents, admiration, right? Dad cared for me, or dad, cheered me on. Mom was there for me, or grandma, whoever, right? We desire that. And as an adult, we still desire it. We want people to look at our accomplishments and we want people to, accept who we have become, right? But it is easy also to say, you know what, if I don't become nothing, then I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to worry about people looking at me for the good or the bad. I can just kind of be coasting, right? I can just be where I am today. It's okay. It's not great, but great is always an option, right? So the journey is always an option, right? We could take that step. And, our journey today is definitely one of, or, like our conversation today is definitely one of, you know, of being brave, right? Of looking at what can we create. Maybe the first concoction we create might not be good, right? Like it could be disastrous. It could be toxic. But then we say, okay, well, let's figure out the antidote. Let's create something better. And with time and with testing, right? And as you said, it's all subjective. Failure and success. So true. You can look at failure as what didn't work, or you can look at failure as like a stepping stone for what will work. And as we begin, to close our our conversation today, I would love to get some final words from you, David, on everything that we have talked about. Of course, like the encompassing of your book and how it helps people. And then please tell people where they can find you, reach out to you, and then begin that one-on-one transformation.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll start with, how do we get everybody to rise and be a little bit better? It's like putting one arm around one person and then another one and creating that chain where we're all pulling each other up. So that's why I love connecting with other people who are committed to doing that. And then just that's how you help all of us, helping one other person at a time, and to sharing those people who are stuck. It is like, how can you help somebody else? And then if I were to pull the thread of my own story, it was really severe depression, and it led to starting with my physical well-being, my fitness, and just little actions there. And then that led to practices for my mental well-being, like meditation, and then from there, like emotional well-being, and then like you said, the spiritual after that. So like start small, take ownership, which we've also, the thread underneath what we've been talking about is, are you going to be a victim or are you going to be the creator of your life, right? The hero of your own story. And to become a total creator, which is another way of saying master, you have to release all victimhood. And that is the alchemical journey. And somebody who can become a co-creator in life and powerfully declare who they are and who they're becoming. And you can flip the idea of success on its head if, and this is something I'm practicing. I'm not the best still, but like, what if success purely living in alignment with who I'm becoming, right? Because then nobody else can take my power from me. And that's just my story, where feeling powerless as a kid is like what fuels me of helping people feel powerful. So what you think your limitation is, or maybe it's trauma, is potentially your greatest gold if you're willing to go through it and get to the other side. So I hope for listeners today, it just gives you that permission and that courage to just take that leap. Whatever the thing is, if it's walking around a block for day one, beautiful. If it's having that hard conversation or fully going for that business, whatever it is, like, let this be the sign from the universe. It's asking more for you. And if you don't take action, beautiful. All right. And think about the regret, the lead on your deathbed to pull you forward if you need to.
And where's the best place for people to find you?
My personal website is davidggilbert.com or goldenlife.com. And you can find the book, The Alchemical Journey, The Ultimate Quest for Inner Gold on Amazon.
Easy enough. All the links are right down below. So you can check out his book, check out his website, and begin the conversation with David and to see how you can create that sustainable success with him, because it's important that we are not only looking at, our day one or our journey today as the end goal, right? Because the end goal can be something that we don't even know, right? It's the idea of our wildest dreams. It's the idea of maybe something that we might not think is possible today. I think of when I was younger, I couldn't imagine the life that I'm living today. Of course, maybe I could dream. I could think of, some nice things that could happen, but the reality was I didn't know, what was going to be mine until I took that step. So figure out what is going to be yours. Take that step, right? Again, the book is going to be a great guide. Dave is going to be a great guide. But you do have to open your eyes and you have to say, all right, I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. I'm ready to see the light. So I do want to thank you, David, for coming on, spending some time, and then, of course, talking about your work today.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and just dare to explore what you're capable of.